ये रेडियो पाकिस्तान पॉडकास्ट है।
Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan News and Current Affairs channel, and I'm your host Ali Jannat. Dear listeners and viewers, in this segment of Perspective program, we discuss bilateral relations, cooperation, and other important developments of mutual interest with the diplomats of Pakistan's friendly countries and regional and international blocs. Today in our show, we have a very special guest, Ambassador of Republic of Uzbekistan to Pakistan, His Excellency, Mr. Ebek Arif Usmanov. This show is being broadcast simultaneously from News and Current Affairs channel on Saturday, 6:15 p.m. We welcome you, Honor, in our show, and thank you very much for your precious time. Thanks indeed.
Thank you.
Firstly, I would like to know, Excellency, Pakistan and Uzbekistan enjoy cordial historical relation with commonalities in culture and tradition. What initiative should be taken to further cement historical relations further?
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I'm very grateful to the Radio Pakistan for inviting me as the guest to this very historical studio, which we know that this studio is blessed by such great personalities like founders of this nation, Quaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah Sahab. And so that's why for every ambassador, including me, of course, it's a great honor and privilege to be here. So having said that, answering to your good question, of course, if I may say that our cultural ties, historical ties are going very deeply to the history. From the day that your in the subcontinent, the Harappa civilization has been erased, then it was that the same period that in Tirmiz and in Samarkand and Bukhara, also the civilization has been started, regional connectivity interactions. So if you just look to the madrasas, mosques, maqbaras in Samarkand, in Bukhara, in Khiva, in Tirmiz, you will see the very close similarities with the same ones that we have here in the Khyber, in Balochistan, in Multan, in Bahawalpur, in Lahore. So then, of course, the most closest historical links, of course, they started from the period that Amir Taimur,
Yes.
the founder of the Samarkand Empire, has reached to the subcontinent. And after him, we know very well about that legacy of Mirza Zahruddin Babur, his grandson. And you know it as the Mughal period, we know it's the Baburid dynasty. And starting from the Khyber gates up till the Lahore, you may say everywhere, you may see everywhere the legacy that Babur's and his dynasty, his son and his nephews has been doing for a long period of time. And of course, our historical and cultural bonds is also related to our religion, alhamdulillah, that there is well known that it's Central Asia, and in particular Uzbekistan and Samarkand and Bukhara and Tirmiz, where the cradles and the sources of the Islamic religion which been spread, as well as from the Arab Peninsula, as well as from the Central Asia. One thing is very, very making close our countries, of course, it's the Sufi tradition, the Sufi Karama in Bukhara. Our 7 peers of Bukhara, as the Ramitani, as the Bahauddin Naqshbandi, as Abdul Khaliq Ghujdawani, Baba Samasi and others, they have very well known their legacy in such cities like Peshawar and Rawalpindi and in Multan and Bahawalpur, where we have Idgah Sharif. So from Bukhara Sharif to Mazar Sharif to Idgah Sharif and Gulra Sharif, we are having very closest links historical by our two nations and two countries. So when I'm meeting with my many Pakistani brothers, and they are always saying that actually from this cultural and historical point of view, we are like two countries as the one nation. If you see that similarity, that was of course that Imam al-Bukhari Rahmat alayh, Imam at-Tirmizi, Burhanuddin Marghinani, Zamah Shahri. Then if everybody in Pakistan, they know Abu Ali ibn Sina, they know Abu Rayhan al-Biruni, al-Harazmi, al-Farghani, and the same way as the legacy of Allama Iqbal and Mirza Ghalib are very well known in Uzbekistan. We have streets, we have madrasas, we have mahallas by the name of Mirza Ghalib and Allama Iqbal in Uzbekistan. So all of these cultural ties and historical ties are bounding us together for many centuries.
Yeah, Excellency, you mentioned regional connectivity in your reply. I want to know in the same context, how do you see the relations between Pakistan and Uzbekistan, especially in the context of regional connectivity?
Yes, regional connectivity is the main driver and the main tool of the social, economic and regional integration.
Yes.
Yes, Central Asia and South Asia, and particularly Uzbekistan and Pakistan, in the light of the history and during the many centuries, they've been bounded together with the caravan roads, with the industrial cooperation, and there was one region with the same transport and logistical integrated and multiplied and combined integrational links. So caravans started, which we know from the very history as the Silk Road, but actually these ties has been started for even much more before the Silk Roads.
Yes.
So of course the renaissance of our economic integration was on the 15th century. And of course I already mentioned that personalities who has been always coming and going, but the trade, transport and logistics via Afghanistan, via modern Afghanistan, was always between our two regions and our two countries. So having said that, what my president has initiated 5 years back, and when he started first to discuss it with the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif Saab, and after that with the Prime Minister Imran Khan Saab, this connectivity strategy of my president is focusing on the opening the borders between our two countries, integrating the transit country like Afghanistan, which is lying in between our two countries, to use the Afghanistan, not just, it's not good to say the use, but to offer to Afghanistan to be as the transit country between our two regions and two countries. So that's why last year in July, my president has initiated in Uzbekistan international conference on the South Asia and Central Asia inter-regional connectivity.
Right.
So, and Pakistani Prime Minister and leader of Afghanistan, and of course the foreign ministers of more than 50 countries has attended and they have participated actively in this connectivity. And Uzbekistan not only invited the all South Asian and Central Asian countries. We have invited Arab countries, Gulf countries. We have invited Asia Pacific countries. We have invited European countries, and all of them, they've been attended in the very high level, on the ministerial level, and they definitely and vehemently they have assured that the regional connectivity is the very good tool and driver for the bringing our two economies. What we need to do, we need to make a stable and sustainable transport and logistic corridors between our two countries via brotherly Afghanistan, and using two countries' opportunity, Pakistan as the hub in the Central Asia and Uzbekistan in the South Asia, and Uzbekistan as the key and country and the hub in the Central Asia. We can go much beyond of that two region. But in the first step, of course, important thing are important drivers and locomotives of this to connectivity is Uzbekistan and Pakistan. What we are now working on with the three countries, Uzbekistan, Pakistan and Afghanistan, it's the century project, which we say the railway connectivity from Uzbek border city of Termez via Afghanistan, via Jalalabad, via Mazar Sharif, Kabul, Jalalabad and Peshawar, and that would be very well connected with all Pakistani railway network. So by this connectivity, which we already started, alhamdulillah, between our two countries and three countries and three nations, that the strategy of the connectivity, inshallah, will come into reality.
Enhanced, yes. So, Mr. Ambassador, what is the status of bilateral cooperation in economic sector, especially when we talk about trade and investment? What would you like to add in this regard?
As I mentioned already, that my president, Honorable His Excellency Shaukat Mirziyoyev, in 2015 and 2017, when he first met with former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, they started negotiation and they laid the foundation for that regional connectivity and bilateral cooperation, economic cooperation, focusing on economy. And then when my president has successfully continued this strategy also with the former Prime Minister Imran Khan Saab, and by that and up till now our countries have reached the strategical partnership. But coming back before focusing on the strategical partnership, I want just give you some figures of how our efforts, of our combined efforts of three countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Uzbekistan, has been manifested in what kind of achievements we have been. So trade is the first and the foremost collective efforts. From the trade figures, you may understand how it's going on, how it's working and how it's developing between our two countries. In 2015, our bilateral trade was only just 20 million. And so it means that 10 million exports from your side and 10 million exports from Uzbek side. But then after that, after reaching to that agreements on the regional connectivity and bilateral connectivity, when we started to use actively the Afghanistan as the transit territory, we've been able during last 5 years to increase the bilateral trade gap between our two countries every year as the 50-60%. So on the 2017 we already reached to the 45 million of trade. In 2019 we have reached up to $198 million. Then 2020 we have reached 120 million, and by the way it's 2019 and 2020 years, they've been the most difficult years for the global economy because of pandemics. Even that time we had as the 40-50% increase. So in 2021, alhamdulillah, our countries have almost reached 181 million. So you may see that from 20 million in 2015, we easily we have reached to 181 million. Even these 4 months, according to statistics of these 4 months, we have already registered 75 million. So in 4 months, we have now observing a 25% of increase of our trade. How we just reached that one? We started negotiations on the transit trade and we signed the transit trade agreement. We started after that, next step was the preferential PTA, preferential trade agreement, and we also signed this during the historical visit of my president in March. In March 2022 to Islamabad, our leaders has inked the preferential trade agreement. So what we are now looking for as the next step, we will see the opportunity for the free trade agreement, which will be very useful for our two economies. So by this, and we have opening the trade and gaps. We are now combining it with opening transport and logistic corridors between our two countries via neighboring Afghanistan. And next step of that, of course, it's industrial cooperation that we can do together in agricultural machinery, in the chemical, in textile, and pharmaceutical, and in the field of the agricultural field. Agricultural field is very promising areas, and of course, such in areas, new areas like of connectivity, like IT. It's also very important and promising dimensions for the cooperation and the integration of our economies.
So, sir, when we talk about Central Asia is a region, as you know, rich in terms of natural resources. It's not about Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan. How Central South Asia connectivity will benefit the whole region?
Yeah. Why we came to that South Asian and Central Asia connectivity? Let me first say that my president, His Excellency Shaukat Mirziyoyev, after coming to power 5 years back, he first started the regional integration within the area, within our closest neighboring countries. Uzbekistan, as you know, is in the very heart of the all Central Asian countries, including Afghanistan. So the confidence building measures, the regional integrational projects, that annual meetings of the heads of the states of the Central Asia, they have provided a very good opportunity to start the regional integration projects.
Right.
So the next step which we initiated and with all Central Asian countries, it's a region to region South Asian and Central Asia connectivity. Yes, you rightly mentioned that Uzbekistan and all other Central Asian, we are having alhamdulillah,
good ties and relations,
and mineral resources, energy resources, power resources, and vice versa. Pakistan also having his own energy resources. He's also having its own mineral resources. So what we are saying about the combining of efforts, we are saying about compensating of efforts. So when we say about the TAPI projects which are coming from neighboring Turkmenistan to that region and through Afghanistan. When we say about CASA 1000 on the energy power, TAPI is gas and the CASA is with the electricity. When we say about the railway projects, and of course that would be vice versa, that will be also the backtrack, the same way that when we say about power supply to Pakistan, the same way it can be reverse power supply from Pakistan to the Central Asia and beyond. Anyway, that two our regions may combine, and we need just a strong political will. We need, of course, the hard work to find the win-win solution between our two regions and two economies, and to find the mutually beneficial cooperation between our countries.
Yes, and before moving towards the new Uzbekistan strategy, I would like to know from you that you rightly mentioned that regional connectivity is vital to enhance, to increase, trade and economic activities. So tell us briefly, so that we can move further, on what projects Uzbekistan is working and focusing on.
On the projects with Pakistan.
Yes, as far as trade and economy is concerned.
So I already mentioned about the efforts of our two countries on the trade, transit trade and preferential trade.
Right.
Now we're coming to the transport and logistics. Just after my visit of my president, His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, to Islamabad,
yes,
our governments have decided, in cooperation with the neighboring Afghanistan, to hold the transport and logistic conference, trilateral in Termez city. Why we have chosen the Termez city as the place for the trilateral transport and logistics? It's because we have already built in Termez, in the bordering with Afghanistan, the International Cargo Center, the newly equipped and developed and sophisticated, modernized cargo center, which the off-dock terminal of that cargo center can be used to the benefits of the transport and logistics and the traders company of Pakistan, who can cross via Afghanistan, and they can use this one. Of course, this cargo center is not just as for the Pakistan and Afghanistan, but it is also for the all South Asian country who might be seeing beneficial to start. It's also good for Bangladesh, it's also good for Sri Lanka, it's also good for India, and we have already started this one. So next step, it's going to be, of course, industrial cooperation.
Very good.
Agricultural machinery, as I said to you, pharmaceutical and textile, and of course the chemical and electronical industries, where our two countries started to use the joint ventures on building in Pakistan, in Uzbekistan, the manufacturing. That is a very promising and long-term cooperation between our two countries.
All right, Mr. Excellency, what is the development strategy of New Uzbekistan?
Yes, of course, economic and economic is the first and foremost focus of our new strategy. It's a liberalization of economy. It's decreasing the state control of that only coordinating functions of the government. It's incentivizing, stimulating the export and import. It's incentivizing and supporting the industries. And of course, it's the strategy also comprised on the support of the transport and logistics ties within the region, within Uzbekistan and Central Asia, but also beyond of the Central Asia, with all dimensions, starting to the Euro-Asian, to the Gulf countries, to China and the Asia Pacific region, and also via Afghanistan to such countries like Pakistan and Iran and beyond. So of course it's a new strategy is the full support of our young generation initiatives in IT, in science, in technology, and of course its new strategy is also to use the entrepreneurs. We are according to the new strategy, we are supporting the trade chambers, the business association, entrepreneurs of the youngsters, the ladies, the women's association to come inside. And of course the important part of the strategy is the cultural cooperation between our two countries. So we are having a technological legacy, scientific and technological legacy that can be used by our countries and region to region, when we are combining efforts of our research institutions, of our universities, when we are exchanging the experience, when we are exchanging the scholarships. This is also a very good tool for the bringing our two nations. And of course, when we say about culture, we have to say that we should definitely should support the Babur's, Mirza Zahiruddin Babur's Mughals legacy in Pakistan, as well as the Iqbal and Mirza Ghalib legacy in Uzbekistan. We should also use this opportunity for the reviving of our religious cooperation and traditions, interchange between our Sufis and of course with Ziyarat tourism is the main important driving tool that can also may benefit of our two countries, and especially as a long term for the young generations.
Yes, Mr. Excellency, as you mentioned earlier, how do you see the last visit of Uzbekistan President to Pakistan and OIC, Council of Foreign Ministers meeting held in Islamabad?
Great. So I already mentioned that the big achievements of our countries for the last 5 years was that we reached the strategical partnership, and political declaration of the establishment of the strategical partnership was definitely signed during my president visit to Islamic Republic of Pakistan. All over we have, during that historical summit, we have reached up to 11 bilateral intergovernmental agreements.
Wow.
Which are comprising all the steps that preferential trade, which I already mentioned, that we also we signed the very important banking cooperation agreement, which was also the need of our as soon as our trade and industrial cooperation is growing. It's very important that the banks of Pakistan should be represented in Uzbekistan, and vice versa, Uzbek banks and their branches can operate in your great country for the benefit of the entrepreneurs. Of course, we've been signing also the tourism cooperation, focusing on the ziyarat, on the pilgrimage tourism, which been signed. Then next was that cooperation agreement between agricultural ministries of agricultures of our two countries. Then we coming also one of important agreement was between the PTV and Uzbek TV broadcasting corporations, that they bounded together, and I hope that next step we can be between Uzbekistan Radio and Committee
Radio
and
Pakistan.
Radio Pakistan, which can also combine our
indeed,
efforts.
great news.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. And when we talk about CPEC is a flagship project of BRI. Should Uzbekistan also take advantage of this project. What do you think, and what would you like to add in this regard?
Of course, BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, and strategy of CPEC, which is Chinese and Pakistani. These are strategy very, very promising area, and as we know that in Uzbekistan also we are having a very good cooperation. We already started with the Chinese economy, and our next step for that Belt and Road new initiative that we are doing from this year, it's building the railway between Uzbekistan and China via transit country as Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan is it. So the same way, when we say about railway connection, railway project, century project of Termez, Mazar-e Sharif, Kabul, Jalalabad and Peshawar, we know that it would be definitely genuinely linking with the ML1 project.
All right.
Of CPEC, which is going from the highway, which is going from Karachi to Peshawar. So that railway project and the motorway project, which we are saying about ML1, they will make a good opportunity for multimodal transit trade corridors that can be using our two countries. So, and of course, next step from after that trade and transit connectivity can be industrial connectivity, can be the joint manufacturing where between our not two but three countries. So this CPEC, Belt and Road, and our initiative of railway, Trans-Afghan Railway, would be combining, would be compensating, and will be only enriching together.
Yes. So, Mr. Excellency, as you mentioned earlier, that Afghanistan has a vital role as far as regional connectivity is concerned. So, do you think Pakistan is doing right efforts to address the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan?
No, for sure, of course. All the world community countries, and especially regional countries, we are we are immediately reacted to that humanitarian crisis in the neighboring Afghanistan, as well as the Pakistan is using its borders to bring the humanitarian relief, and also Uzbekistan is doing the same. Both of our countries, we are not just doing from our side. Of course, our governments, my country, we are reaching to Afghanistan via railway, which we have from Termez city to Mazar-e Sharif. We are using this motorway, not just motorway, but the railway for the bringing humanitarian aid to neighboring Afghanistan. And Pakistan, using his 4 or 5 transit checkpoints, also are using the motorway to bring, and the air bridge you are using for the bringing humanitarian relief to Afghanistan, as the medical and the medicines and the food and medicines. And of course, our two countries, we also became as the hub from Pakistan, the international organizations and from United Nations and other humanitarian international organizations are using Pakistan as the hub to bring the humanitarian relief to Afghanistan. The same way in Uzbekistan, also helping to the Euro-Asian countries to deliver the humanitarian. Of course, it's highly commendable, it's highly appreciated by the world community, and I hope that it would be on the next stage that we've been doing after the humanitarian relief. I think we should bring our neighboring Afghanistan as the part of our regional political, social and economic mainstream, inshallah.
So, Mr. Ambassador, apart from all these, whether there are any plans to enhance educational cooperation between the two countries for the student of of the both region?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, we are having good cooperation in the sphere of education.
All right.
It's not just only between the ministries of the high education and but also it's between our institutions and the universities. Pakistani worldwide famous universities like Lahore, like in Punjab, Lahore University in Punjab, like
Punjab
LAMS,
University,
like Karachi universities, and also we are already having the agreements and the MOUs between of them with Uzbek state universities like in Tashkent, in Samarkand, in Bukhara, and Farghana. And every year for the last 5 years we are having a growing numbers of the Pakistani students who are going to the medical institutions of Uzbekistan.
Right.
And right now it's in more than 7 cities, 7 universities of Uzbekistan. You may see the Pakistani students who are studying there the medicine in Uzbek universities and institutions, and vice versa. We are having a good relationship between the Tashkent State University and Nukus State University with Lahore University and Lahore University in Punjab, and he is one of the leading institutions who are inviting the Uzbek students and teachers. When we say about the educational, of course we start with experience exchange. Of course we start with doctors and professors research exchange. We start with workshops on the aiming on that one, and there is not just opportunity for the medicine but also for the cotton growing, agricultural selection of cotton. We are having opportunity for the enriching the researches on the agricultural field between our two educational institutions. And of course physics, mathematics and ITs are also very promising, where the two countries already started the cooperation, and our two governments are always facilitating and stimulating this cooperation.
Sir, both countries are members of ECU and other regional organizations. How Uzbekistan and Pakistan can work together for the development and the prosperity in the region?
Yeah. First of all, of course, let me say that Uzbekistan was one of the countries who definitely supported the accession of Pakistan to the ASEO, and in 2016, in 2015, we have, and during the Uzbekistan rotating chairmanship, there have been a decision on the access of the Pakistan and neighboring India to the ASEO. Now, after that period, Pakistan became as the very active part of the ASEO, and ASEO, as the second largest world international organization, became a very vibrant, very dynamic organization who is now uniting more than 20 countries. Of course, the 8 countries which are the members are having the most closest cooperation inside that one. And this year I want to tell to my Pakistani brothers and to your auditorium, your great auditorium, that Uzbekistan is the chairman of the rotating chairman of the ASEO, and very soon in September we will be having in the historical city of Samarkand, we will be having a conference of the ASEO heads of state. And before that, we will definitely we will hold there in Tashkent. We will hold the foreign ministers FM SCO summit, and now during this last month we had already like 20 different conferences on the ministerial level, and Pakistani delegations, they've been very well represented in that conferences on the transport and logistic conference of the ACO ministers of transport, tourism ministers of the ACO countries, and sport, culture and youth affairs ministers of the ACO countries, and very soon would be the poverty alleviation, yani for the social solidarity ministers of ACO countries, where your minister Honorable His Excellency Shazia Mari will be attending very soon. So after that we are having an IT conference, we are having science and technology conference, we are having conferences on the pilgrimage tourism, we are having conferences on agriculture and the all kind of the economic activities that Uzbekistan is focusing, and integrational in the regional integrational activities that Uzbekistan is focusing as the rotating chairman. Pakistan is also actively engaged and participating in these areas. So hopefully we will be having more and more interaction between our two countries during the SCO, and we hope that the government of Pakistan also will be very active in the forthcoming as it was before, in the future also, inshallah.
So both Islamic countries have identical views on regional and international issues. What kind of role Pakistan and Uzbekistan they can play and they should play for Islamic Ummah and issues being faced by Islamic world?
Of course, our two countries, Muslim countries, alhamdulillah, they are, as I told it, we are having a very historical bonds and cultural ties. And of course, Uzbekistan is the being dominantly Sunni Hanafi countries. We are having a very close cooperation with Pakistan in all areas on the interest on our
mutual interest, yes.
So I think the most challenging one that for the last decade of years is the Islamophobia.
Yes.
And we in Uzbekistan, our government and our nation definitely has supported the initiative of the Pakistan government on the announcing in the United Nations the day of fight with Islamophobia. This is something the very interesting one. But of course we should look to this to the broader perspective. We should say about the banking, economic cooperation, banking cooperation, cultural cooperation, transport, logistic cooperation, research, science and technology cooperation between our Muslim countries. Our Muslim countries will be definitely going forward and developing when we are using our own Islamic ties and religious ties for the compensating and for supporting each other in this field, inshallah. I think it will be only continuing.
Excellency, my last question, any message you would like to give to the people of Pakistan on the behalf of people of Uzbekistan?
Of course. So first of all, let me thank Radio Pakistan and you, my brother, for inviting me to that very important and very comprehensive media coverage and the Radio Pakistan. I know that you have a great auditorium, not just only in the South Asia, but also for the overseas Pakistanis. So my message is that it's the greetings of ambassador of the country who are having a brotherly relations. We are close to each other with our historical and cultural ties. We are countries that are having a very bright future through the regional connectivity, through the economic cooperation, through industrial joint manufacturing, agricultural and other fields of manufacturing. So it's of course I want to welcome Pakistanis to visit Uzbekistan, and not as just as the businessmen, but also as the guests and as the tourists, to go to their second homeland.
Yes.
Because we know that according to the scientific works and researches, that we are having a close relationship as the brotherly countries between Central Asia and South Asia, in particular in Pakistan.
Right.
So I welcome all Pakistanis in Uzbekistan to pay ziyarat to Samarkand and Bukhara and Khiva, to pay ziyarat
indeed.
for that historical maqbaras and mausoleums, inshallah ta'ala.
Yes, by all means. So today in our show we had a very special guest, Ambassador of Republic of Uzbekistan to Pakistan, His Excellency Mr. Abek Arif Usmanov. Thank you very much, sir, for your precious time.
Thank you.
Thanks indeed. So dear listeners and viewers, that's it from today's show, and in next show we will have another new personality in the next show, and the producer of today's program was Rana Ghulam Mustafa, and video engineer Farhan Ali, and executive producer Abdul Rauf Khan. This show is also available on Radio Pakistan official website, that is www.radio.gov.pk, and social media platforms, and Radio Pakistan podcast at podcast.radio.gov.pk. I'm your host Ali Jannat, signing off from this show, and I'm signing off from News and Current Affair channel of Radio Pakistan, Islamabad. Allah Hafiz.
ये रेडियो पाकिस्तान पॉडकास्ट है।